Arkansas Bates from Little Rock, Arkansas, and we're all Blansky's Beauties. Fame and the fortune, waiting to be won, I want it all.
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today, we will be discussing Season 4, Episode 17, the third anniversary special.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in the third anniversary special.
We open with Joni looking through the living room until she finds what she's looking for, right as Richie comes downstairs asking if she found their parents' photo album. The photos weren't pasted in, and they all fall out of the book, and Richie and Joni have to pick them all up.
Good job.
Howard runs downstairs, saying that Marion is coming down. He reminds them of the plan. Howard is taking Marion bowling and letting her think he forgot their wedding anniversary. While they're gone, Richie and Joni will decorate the living room for the party. Howard prepares himself to pick a fight with Marion, and Richie remembers an argument that was a real beaut, which just happens to be the one from last week's episode, Marion Rebels.
Of all the harebrained, irresponsible things, I've got to be in a meeting in a half an hour.
If you want to know what happened, you can listen to that episode. Marion comes downstairs. She and Howard are about to leave together when Howard answers the door, and there's Fonzie, holding a wrapped present. Howard shuts the door before Marion can see him, and cajoles Marion into going upstairs and changing into a sweater she won't get dirty. Richie lets Fonzie in.
A door is slammed in the face of a man bearing gifts.
And Howard hides the present. He then asks Fonzie to be nice to Howard's cousin Nancy if she comes by early. Fonzie says he'll be his very, very charming self. Marion comes downstairs. But again, as she and Howard are about to leave, there's someone at the door. This time Ralph with the balloons. Howard slams the door in his face and plays off the resulting yelp as some strange dog. He and Marion try to take the back door, but Potsy's there with decorations. Howard slips out and pushes Potsy in the bushes.
Yeah!
Claiming the scream must have also been that strange dog. He and Marion finally leave. Richie lets Ralph and Potsy in. Potsy says he thought Howard liked him, followed by a montage of clips of Potsy trying to cozy up to Howard, and Howard's reactions ranging from mild annoyance to outright violence. One of these clips is from Joni's dream sequence in They Call It Potsy Love.
Hiya, Pops.
Don't ask me how that works. Fonzie asks Richie what he's going to do with the pictures. Richie plans to take his parents through the years pictorially, and Fonzie makes a crack about Howard's weight gain.
So then we can see the big H become the, big H, huh?
Then takes notice of Richie's junior prom photo with his date. Richie says he doesn't do too bad with the chicks, followed by a montage of clips of Richie's date, all of which go badly. Fonzie and Joni look at a picture of Joni, taken the night before her first date, transitioning into a clip of Marion's awkward Birds and the Bees talk with Joni from Not With My Sister You Don't.
If this Spike tries to put his arm around you in the movie theater, you just tell him that you are not that kind of a girl.
What kind of a girl?
Well, the kind of a girl that you are not.
As Joni blows up a balloon, Richie shows Fonzie a picture of Potsy with an arm around Fonzie from after Potsy saved his life and took Fonzie roller skating, setting up the relevant clip.
That is the last time putting wheels on my heels.
While Fonzie reads a magazine, Ralph asks Potsy why they have to do all the work decorating. Potsy says, because they're afraid of him. Ralph says he's not afraid of Fonzie, followed by a clip of Ralph begging to tie up Fonzie in The Motorcycle.
Please don't kill me, Fonzie. Please don't kill me. It was an accident. I was temporarily insane. I didn't mean it. I'll never do it again.
When all the decorations are up, there's a buzz at the door. But it's not Howard and Marion, it's Owl to Kate. He apologizes, and Fonzie says not to apologize, he'll eat anything. And Richie asks what about liver, setting up a clip from The Muckrakers of Fonzie being afraid of the meat product. Then one from the end, where Fonzie gets over his fear and eats some liver. Marion and Howard come home to the party, and an emotional Marion thanks everyone.
I don't believe I never would have guessed. Oh, this is such a nice surprise. You're all so dear. Thank you.
Before they cut the cake, Richie and Joni have a present for their parents and give them a box with a fish in it. The actual present is the weekend at Lake Whitefish that Richie and Joni sprung for their parents. Fonzie gives them his present next, a raccoon tail that has brought Fonzie and his bike years of good luck. Joni brings up Fonzie's motorcycle jump, and Fonzie concedes that one time he wasn't so lucky. After some clips from Fearless Fonzarelli Parts 1 and 2, Fonzie admits the jump wasn't his smartest move, but he gave his word and a lot of people were counting on him. He has never walked away from responsibility in his life, he says. Followed by a clip from Fonzie the father of Fonzie telling the pregnant Louisa looking for him that he's Potsy Weber.
Hi, I'm Potsy Weber.
Marion suggests they sing, and Richie suggests his theme song, followed by various clips of Richie singing Blueberry Hill.
I found my thrill on Blueberry Hill.
Now it's just better than ever.
There's a buzz at the door, and Howard tells Mary he has a big surprise. the lady who introduced them, his cousin Nancy. He lets her in, and she initially assumes Fonzie is Richie.
You must be Richie.
Nancy, who lives and works in Las Vegas, was in Cicero catching an act, and since it was so close by, she thought she'd stop by for their anniversary. Howard explains Nancy is in charge of entertainment at the Oasis Hotel. Ralph and Potsy say if she's looking for talent, look no further. And then there are some clips of Potsy, Ralph, and Richie's band, then of Marion and Fonzie dancing, then Fonzie dancing alone in They Shoot Fonzies, Don't They? While Ralph plays the piano. Nancy leads Howard in a vaudeville-style dance and a rendition of Tea for Two.
Could raise a family, a boy for you, a girl for me. Can't you see how happy we could be?
Then Howard gives Marion his present to her, a Cracker Jack box with what Marion thinks is a fake engagement ring, something she doesn't find funny. Howard says it's a real engagement ring, which Nancy verifies. Marion squeals in delight and embraces Howard. Joni brings the cake out, and everyone sings, for they're a jolly good couple. Later, after everyone has had cake, Nancy says she'd better get back to Vegas, and Marion answers the phone. It's the Aloha Pussycats for Fonzie, who they say is 20 minutes late. Nancy says Fonzie would do very well in Vegas, and Fonzie says he does well everywhere. He congratulates Howard and Marion and leaves, as does Nancy. Howard and Marion smooch. Joni says they're at it again, and Richie says they have the friskiest parents. They excuse themselves to let their parents be alone, and the episode concludes with clips of Howard and Marion getting frisky, then Howard and Marion running upstairs to do just that.
Thank you, Peter. That was the third anniversary show, which first aired back on Saturday, February 5th, 1977 at 8 o'clock. This is the same time slot that Blansky's Beauties would take over just a week later. That night, Happy Days served as the lead into the premiere episode of Fish, starring Abe Vigoda. A spinoff of Barney Miller, Fish was about a New York cop and his wife taking care of 5 foster kids. Meanwhile, over on CBS, there was a great new episode of The Mary Tyler Moore Show in which weatherman Gordy returns to WJM for a visit, causing Ted to beg him for a job. And on NBC, there was a new episode of Emergency called Insanity Epidemic. The third anniversary show was directed by the one and only Jerry Paris, and it was written by Arthur Silver and Bob Brunner. They were both regular writers on Happy Days. In fact, the same team wrote the second anniversary show together a year ago.
Oh, good for you!
But the episode also features writing contributions from
Sid Arthur, Dick Bensfield, William S. Bickley, Frank Buxton, Stephen Dwarman, Perry Grant, Dixie Brown Grossman, Bob Howard, Bill Idelson, Artie Lang, not that Artie Lang, Alan Mandel, Marty Nadler, James Ritz, Barry Rabinowitz, Charles Shire, Michael Warren, Michael Weinberger, Yvette Weinberger, Jack Winter, and Stephen Zacharias.
It was very impressive that you said all of that in almost one breath.
Well, I had to mention it because there's this ridiculously long writing credit at the beginning of the episode, and it takes up 3 screens.
Yep.
As for guest stars this week, obviously the main one is Nancy Walker as Nancy Blansky, Howard's cousin. Born Anna Myrtle Sawyer in Philadelphia in 1922, Nancy had an incredibly long career as a comedian on stage, in radio, and ultimately film and television. Topping out at a mere 4'11", she's probably best known as Rhoda Morgenstern's meddling mom, Ida, on The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and Rhoda.
Rhoda, you're out of Lysol.
Ah, no. This time I was ready for you. Right under the sink, a full can.
Not anymore.
Though she was also a regular on Macmillan and Wife. She did some films too, and she's hilarious as a mute maid named Yetta in Murder by Death from 1976.
You must be the new kitchen maid. I hope you can cook. Answer me. Speak up.
She also directed Can't Stop the Music, the infamous 1980 musical starring the Village People.
It's the musical extravaganza that launches the 80s. It's Alan Carr's Can't Stop the Music.
You can't stop the music.
Fun fact, Can't Stop the Music co-stars June Havoc, younger sister of Gypsy Rose Lee.
And she was Rosie the waitress in a long-running series of ads for Bounty Paper Towel.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper. Take a look. See how much faster Bounty soaks up liquid? The other towel pushes it along and lets it get away.
Unfortunately for Nancy Walker, her Happy Days spinoff Blansky's Beauties lasted only half a season, and the previous year, 1976, she had another unsuccessful solo sitcom called The Nancy Walker Show. So, Peter, what did you think of Nancy Walker as Nancy Blansky?
I think she's a lot of fun in this episode. You know, she gets to misidentify Fonzie as Richie. She gets to be shocked that Joni is taller than her now, because Nancy Walker is a tiny, tiny lady. And she gets to make fun of Howard's weight, which is less fun, and one of two jokes about Howard's weight in this episode. And sometimes they're wildly amusing, and sometimes it's like, okay, can you please stop body shaming Tom Bosley? But yeah, she's a lot of fun in this episode. She's a very good dancer, and her performing Tea for Two with Howard is a lot of fun. I do really like her in this episode, and maybe it's just me overcompensating for the fact that Blansky's Beauties is really, really bad, but it was nice seeing her show up here, and it made me sorry that she couldn't get a better show. But she's been on other stuff that's pretty good.
Well, it's unfortunate that Nancy Walker could never get a show of her own going for very long. Unfortunately, Blansky's Beauties is, as you say, very, very bad. I was looking through reviews of it last night, and one called it loud and leering, which I thought was a pretty accurate description.
Yeah, it's also very, very dumb.
It's extremely dumb and extremely hacky in its writing.
Also, none of its characters seem to really have much interiority or personality beyond the vaguest sketches. And pretty much all of the female characters, sans Nancy, are very clearly there to be fan service characters, which is fine in moderation, but there's like 20 of them.
All of the articles that I read about Blansky's Beauties said it was an attempt to rip off Charlie's Angels, and they thought, well, if Charlie's Angels can top the ratings with 3 beautiful women, imagine what Blansky's Beauties can do with 20 of them.
Weirdly enough, both of the times that Gary Marshall would attempt to retool Blansky's Beauties, the first time is going to be the even more fan servicey Legs, which is going to ditch the Nancy Blansky character, and the second time is going to be Who's Watching the Kids, which focuses more on Scott Baio and another kid character.
You can be as warm as sunshine. You can be as bright as day. All depends on what you're watching. Who's watching the kids? From day to day. Try watching the kids. They know the way. Who's watching the kids? They know the way.
And it's basically, if Blansky's Beauties was an attempt to cash in on Charlie's Angels and 1970s jiggle television, then Who's Watching the Kids is like a very typical 80s family sitcom. For whatever reason, despite being very different, it tonally reminded me a lot of Different Strokes, where you've got the kids in the wacky situation. I think there's even a similar font.
I don't know why they kept trying to fix Blansky's Beauties. Maybe Gary Marshall just wasn't ready to let go of this concept. But in years later, when Gary would talk about this era of his career, he seemed to be at peace with it. He would just say, oh, it didn't work, and I just moved on. Also in this episode, we have recycled footage of
Diana Canova, Charlene Tilton, Udana Power, Karen Deutzman, Diana Hyland, although I think her scene was cut. In my version, there wasn't anything from Fonzie's Old Lady, Paulette Breen, Jennifer Shaw, and Gary Epp.
Of these wonderful people, the only one we haven't discussed before is Karen Deutzman, who played Susan, Potsy's date in Because She's There.
I'm Susan.
I'm Richie Cunningham.
And this is my cousin Phyllis.
This was her only credit. Did Potsy's date make any impression on you?
Not here, and I don't think in the original episode.
Which is why we didn't talk about her the first time we talked about Because She's There. As for songs, obviously the main one is Tea for Two, performed by Nancy Walker and Tom Bosley, with Don Most on the piano. It was a tune originally written in 1924 by Vincent Youmans and Irving Caesar for a musical called No No Nanette. For They're a Jolly Good Couple is performed by the entire cast. And for recycled songs from other episodes, we get
Blueberry Hill by Ron Howard, the roller rink versions of Buttons and Bows, and the Blue Danube Waltz, You'll Never Walk Alone by Anson Williams, Who's Sorry Now by Connie Francis, Venus by Anson Williams, the anniversary song by Donnie Most, It's Late by Anson Williams, and Have a Nagila by Donnie Most and Anson Williams.
As for cultural and historical references this week, not much. We get a recycled reference to Kryptonite, Superman's weakness, which was first introduced on the Superman radio show before becoming canon in the comics. Nancy mentions Cicero, which is a large factory town in northeastern Illinois. In the 50s and 60s, it was the site of race riots and civil rights protests. It's about 96 miles south of Milwaukee. The good news is you can get there in about an hour and a half by I-94. The Oasis Hotel in Las Vegas is fictional. The name is probably inspired by such real-life hotel casinos as the Dunes, the Sands, and the Sahara. They all had kind of deserty names. Cracker Jack was introduced back in 1896, but they didn't start including prizes in the boxes until 1912. And this practice was finally halted in 2016. I had no idea that you couldn't get Cracker Jack prizes anymore.
Aw.
Candy-coated popcorn, peanuts, and a prize. That's what you get in Cracker Jack.
Other observations. This episode was definitely not shot in front of a live studio audience, so the laugh track returns with a vengeance. That being said, this episode was in way better condition than the second anniversary show. So I had a theory that this episode was just treated like any other episode of Happy Days, and it was included in the syndication package, and it was just shown along with everything else. Whereas the second anniversary show probably wasn't. Mm-hmm. And my theory is that we were the first people to watch the second anniversary show since it originally aired in the 1970s. I had to go looking for the second anniversary show, and I didn't have to go looking for this one. This was easy to find.
When we talked about the second anniversary show, I speculated that maybe that episode wasn't really in continuity because it's just sort of there, and it's in distinctly worse quality. So I feel like everyone might have just forgotten about it. Whereas this one, it is a clip show, but it also has Nancy Walker there as her Blansky's Beauty character. So it's kind of semi-important in the Fonzie verse for a given value of important.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It was setting up another show, so this one is considered more of a canonical episode, and the second anniversary show was just some special that they aired once. Erin Moran is wearing the exact same outfit from the middle of Marion Rebels, which suggests to me that the scenes for this episode were shot on the same day. My guess is that they said to the cast, hey, can you stick around for a few more hours? We got some scenes for an anniversary show that we want to do. That's just a theory. Nice continuity. Howard's bowling shirt from Fonzie the Salesman returns. It says the 10 pins on the back, so that's his bowling team. Richie Cunningham flashes back to something that happened less than a week ago. Now that is nostalgia.
Yep.
In retrospect, clip shows like this are a precursor of modern-day supercuts. We get a Howard Hates Potsy supercut, we get a Blueberry Hill supercut, and we get a Frisky supercut.
I think it's kind of great that this episode ended with a reminder that Howard and Marion have a very active and healthy sex life. Like, I think that's great. It is kind of weird that Richie is so approving of his parents' friskiness. It's nice that he's supportive of them, but also, Richie, you don't have to be that excited. You can be mildly grossed out. They are your parents.
Richie and Joni are surprisingly into their parents' love life.
I mean, we know that from Joni because of her My Parents Are Still Frisky composition, the clip of which is in this episode. Although, come to think of it, Richie also gets a clip where he comes down the stairs and sees his parents kissing and is like, wow, my parents sure are frisky. So I guess this is consistent with both of their characterization, but still, it's weird.
It is. Miracle of Miracles. A clip from season 2 actually makes it in this time. It's Marion and Joni's sex talk from Not With My Sister You Don't. I thought that was pretty amazing. They normally pretend that season 2 didn't happen. In retrospect, though, that clip from Richie Branches Out is even worse the second time.
Why don't you tell me what you want?
Well, why don't you move a little closer?
Paulette Breen does a lot of suggestive poses for this random high school kid in a strange closed-down restaurant when she really needs to get the heck out of there.
At least it ends with Richie getting crushed by the Christmas tree.
It does, so he does get his consequences. And on second examination, Fonzie's accident in Fearless Fonzarelli Part 2 was caused by having a fried chicken stand way, way too close to the landing area. What on earth was Arnold thinking?
He really wanted to sell his chicken.
I guess so, but where was Fonzie supposed to land that bike? Everybody was saying, oh, you messed up that jump. Well, where was he supposed to land? This is a parking lot. There's very limited real estate there. Since this is Howard and Marion's 20th anniversary, and Marion has been taking care of Howard for 21 years, according to last week's show, I guess they dated for 1 year before getting hitched. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So, Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions this week?
There's the short overalls that Angela was wearing in her clip. There's the Lady Liberty costume that Phyllis was wearing in her clip from Because She's There. But other than that, nothing really stuck out to me.
So did you have any other observations that you wanted to make about the third anniversary show?
Based on Marion not finding the idea of a joke about getting a Cracker Jack engagement ring to be funny, I think it's kind of implied that her and Howard's marriage was very, very quick, and maybe Howard couldn't afford a real engagement ring at the time. So maybe you're right that they had this very whirlwind courtship, and they got married very quickly. And I think that's going to be confirmed later on in a season 7 episode where Richie and Fonzie plan a real wedding for Howard and Marion because of World War II, and Howard serving in it. They were not able to have a big wedding.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to Howard and Marion getting a real wedding, because that episode actually features, I think, my favorite Happy Days guest stars of all time.
So you've got something to be excited for in the darker times.
So I will ask that age-old timeless question, was this episode any good?
It's a clip show. It is what it is. It's about as good as it could be. It could have been worse, I guess. I do think it was better than the second anniversary show. I think it had more of a reason to exist, and admittedly, I feel like most of that reason is Nancy Walker. I liked her a lot in this episode, but I don't think it really justifies this happening. I don't like clip shows.
I'm not hugely enthused about clip shows either, but I was mostly impressed that this one was a distinct step up from the second anniversary show.
They're learning.
Yeah, I thought the first one was kind of a piece of junk, and I thought this one was at least a little bit better. And it was fun to see Nancy Walker in the Happy Days setting. I do feel sorry for ABC, who thought that they were going to counteract CBS's powerhouse Saturday night lineup with a Blansky's Beauties Fish Power Hour. That's just not going to work out for them.
Blansky's Beauties celebrate when Nancy gets a job at the top.
First days are liable to be a little hectic.
Well, the job's easy. It's the furniture that's going to kill me.
Then Bernice plans a trip on Fish's 38th wedding anniversary.
This is the first time I've had my own bathroom for months.
Those are going to be two of the more prominent TV bombs of the 1970s. But this is fine. This is an acceptable anniversary show, and it does give you a chance to look back on some previous episodes. If people are revisiting Happy Days, this is one you can skip, but it's completely okay. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the things that we are doing?
Listeners can follow us on Twitter at Fonzie Podcast. They can follow me on Twitter at Sphericals. That's SFERICALS.
And they can follow me on Twitter at Joe_A_Blevins. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysAreours.libsyn.com. And they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysAreourspodcast@gmail.com. So what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, it's the first of a two-parter, where Richie, Potsy, and Ralph finally take the step out of high school in Graduation Part 1. It actually happens in Graduation Part 2, but Graduation Part 1 does set all that up.
We get some very necessary world building, I guess, then, in Graduation Part 1.
Yeah.
So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
I used to do it myself, you know. I did that. It's all cute. See us or hear us, no friends or relation, on weekend vacation. They won't have it known, dear, that we own a telephone. No, but I'll awake and start to bake a sugar cake. Z for all the birds to see. We can raise a family, a girl for you, a boy for me. Oh, can't you see how happy we would be? Edie danced without a waltz. Come on, get Edie up. Dance, a waltz. How can you resist it? How can you resist that? Can't you see how happy we would be?
Terrific. Isn't that terrific?
Not beautiful chord.